This is Emmy-nominated rapper, actor, / the greatest of all times. Ha! T.O.N.E's, and you checking out Dispatch Radio.
All right, I get a chance now to talk to a very talented actress we've been looking forward to talking to for a while. Her name is Jenn Gotzon. Jenn, how are you?
Oh, Brandon, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's great to have you on, and looking forward to talking about a couple of these films that you've been blessed to be a part of. And we'll get right to Doonby, for instance. I think it's a great film with a lot of interesting angle on things. But in your own words, can you sum up a little bit about what the film's about?
Oh, yes. It's a mystery movie that's got twists of romance and a hit in your gut at the end of the film that really allows you to walk out of that movie theater going, wow, I had no idea the difference that I can make in someone's life and the significance of the choices we make. It's set in a small town in Texas in a jazz blues bar, and out of nowhere, this mystery man, Sam Doonby, appears, played by the charming John Schneider, and he comes in and he basically lifts my character off her feet. And my character is a little bit of a wild child. She's this spoiled party girl who doesn't really have purpose in life. And Sam Doonby shows her that she has so much value. And through twists and turns and lots of music, all of a sudden we see what does life look like with Sam Doonby and without Sam Doonby. And I think this movie has probably one of the most provocative endings ever in a film, because it literally, you walk out feeling like there's a residue on your soul for the next couple of days, processing what happened and the importance of all the choices we make, and there are also the consequences of those choices we make. It's an incredible movie that Peter Mackenzie wrote and directed, and I am just so humbled and honored to have been a part of it. It's been neat seeing so many people's lives being changed by this film.
What exactly drew you to the role? What kind of was the thing that really attracted you to playing Laura?
For me, my biggest prayer as an actor is to always be a part of movies that can either inspire or impact somebody's life. And I love playing characters that really go through struggles in life, because I think that's what happens. We are real people who life is hard, and I love being able to play characters that can really authentically bring the depths of life's challenges to screen. And so Laura really does struggle with value. She struggles with self-worthlessness, insecurity, and so many people do. And her way of being able to handle that is by going to the bar and partying and drinking and sleeping the day away, just because it's a way of numbing that pain. And there's so many people who we love that have addictions because, not knowing how to fight through these battles. And that was Laura's journey. And so I think that is really what inspired me to be able to play her, to hope that people who can identify might be able to find some hope and love and comfort from the journey of the film.
We're talking to Jenn Gotzon about Doonby, and she has been very blessed to be a part of a lot of really other great projects coming down. We got one here that's supposed to be coming out very soon. Alone Yet Not Alone, a very powerful film, getting a lot of great buzz about this film. And we've been able to see some limited release on some of that, but it's also getting a wide release here very, very soon. Tell everybody a little bit about that film.
It is a kick in the pants, Brandon. Like, Alone Yet Not Alone is this French and Indian war movie. It's a true story, historical piece, and it was nominated for an Oscar. Bruce Brown wrote this amazing song, and Dennis Spiegel wrote these brilliant lyrics, and Johnny Todd Erickson performed a miracle performance, and it was nominated for an Oscar, and then 2 weeks later, the Academy snagged it away, and as a result, the entire world has known about this. And what I'm so stoked about is people now get to hear the song Alone Yet Not Alone. And otherwise people probably never really would have heard of the movie or really actually have ever even known about the song. The movie comes out in June on Father's Day, and it comes out everywhere. So we all encourage the fathers to take their children, and children take your dads to go see Alone Yet Not Alone. And for those in the meantime, go onto YouTube or on Amazon and type in Alone Yet Not Alone, and you'll hear probably one of the strongest songs you'll ever hear about even though we may feel alone in the wilderness, isolated, and just alone, we are never alone if we choose to keep our head up and look ahead and pray to know that God will never leave us or forsake us, and God is always there with us. And it's this triumphing comfort that this song really, really prevails. And it's an incredible theme song for this French and Indian true story.
And I'm so glad you touched on it. We'll link back to our coverage of the Oscar nomination, of course, and then pulling away the Oscar nomination. But you bring up such a good point, because without that happening, and at some point you just kind of have to go, it's water under a bridge, we can't really undo that. But it really created so much publicity and buzz for the film. It's not just going to be another Christian movie release. It may not have gotten some attention that other films would get. And now, because of this, at least some folks have it on the radar screen. I think that's such a blessing that, through something negative, God can still deliver something positive out of, right?
Yeah, it's like God is the press agent for the movie Alone Yet Not Alone. Because it is, and that's one of the biggest things. I hope people can look through the controversy, regardless of where your beliefs are. People are hearing the buzz of, was it right? Or was it not right? Was it ethical? Was it not ethical? All of those questions. But at the end of the day, if people can actually listen to the song, I really know that it will bring comfort and peace and tranquility and hope into someone's soul. I know it really did me when I worked on the movie, but then also a couple of years after the film, that song really helped save my life, and I just know that it really has the power to save so many other people's lives. And so being that the Oscar was rescinded, it is the biggest blessing because it's opened up more awareness for more people across the globe to hear about this song and hopefully be able to listen to it and be touched by it.
Jenn Gotzon is one busy bee, folks. She is got a whole list of other films as well that maybe she can touch on here. God's Country, a comedy about, quote, making money. I love the synopsis of this film, by the way. An NSA-type film where you're dealing with a bit called Dragon Day, and then another one with Eric Roberts called Dante's Hell Documented. That comes out, I believe, in November. So a lot of different projects coming down the pike here for this year. And is there anything there that I think that you're just like, obviously Doonby and some of these other ones are really just very powerful films, but of those or other ones that you're working on, is there something that stands out to you like, man, this project is really cool and here's why?
God's Country, I love because it's this fun family dramedy that's good for all ages, and you just sit back and you laugh and you get taken on this fun story. It's kind of, do you remember the movie Overboard with Goldie Hawn and
Kurt Russell?
Do you remember that movie?
Of course. I'm a movie guy. You understand. We run a political news site, and we got all this serious stuff going on. And I do all the Christian news, and I run all... Yeah, come on. I'm a movie guy, so through and through. I should be on these game shows, racking it up so I wouldn't have to work. Yeah.
Brandon, that's what we're going to do next. We're going to have a game show. We're going to have you on, or we'll pass your cards out to everybody, so then when they're on a game show, they can call in for you and have you answer the questions. But no, God's Country is almost identical to Overboard or The Proposal, but instead it takes place in Hollywood. This high-powered real estate executive named Megan Doherty. All she wants to do is get ahead in her career, drives a Ferrari, lives in the Hollywood Hills, and she needs to build this big casino to get ahead in her firm. And she goes out to the Mojave Desert to build this casino, but she learns that there's a little piece of land in the middle that is up for foreclosure. It's a church camp, and the church camp is called God's Country. So she goes up, and it's easy. She's going to buy it because it's up for foreclosure. And the owner says, listen, I'm not selling this to you unless you stay on our property for 1 week. And so that's the only way that she's able to buy this camp is if she stays there for 1 week. So that's what she's forced to do with her Prada heels, her Ferrari, and her fancy pants clothing. And she's stuck there in the bugs and the wilderness and the kids, and all the havoc breaks loose, and it's a real fun fish out of what her story. Where then, at the end of the day, she's got to figure out what is the right thing to do. Does she get ahead in her career, or does she try to help save this small little church camp and all the families involved in it?
Fantastic.
Yeah, it just aired on TV this past Sunday, and so you can have all your listeners, if they want, they could Facebook me, and I could send them a copy, a complimentary copy of the movie, one of the director's cuts, if they're interested.
Awesome. We'll put a link to that, and Jenn Gotzon will help hook you up with a copy of God's Country, a great film as well. So let's talk a little bit about how you got started and jumping on board, and now just having such an active career.
Oh, it started when I was 15. I would go to, I'm from Pennsylvania, surrounded by cornfields, and at this small little mom-pop movie theater called the Roxy. And I remember going to the theater when I was younger, and when it was an inspirational movie, I would be electrified with a passion from my head to my feet. And I never understood really what and where and why, but I did know it was something to do with the arts. And I auditioned for my high school play, and my drama teacher told me that I wasn't good enough to make it as an actor. And it broke my heart because I desired this so much. And she said that there's so many people who pursue acting and they never make it, and I don't have enough talent either. And so that night I went home and I prayed, and I was crying, and I just prayed out to God, and I said, Lord, if this is what you want from me, please give me a sign. And out of nowhere, I had this idea that popped in my heart to audition for a local murder mystery dinner theater. And I called up, and as tears were coming down my face, I called up and I was like, when are your auditions? Sniffle, sniffle, sniffle. And they're saying, oh, we're having auditions right now. And so I jumped in my car, and I drove there, and I was cast in my first paid theater production. And that group took me under their wing, and they taught me, and then they introduced me to the school that I went to in New York City, where I studied, and I became an education junkie because of what my teacher told me. I figured, okay, well, if I really want this desire to inspire people through movies, I really need to know what I'm doing, and so I just committed, and I probably have studied over 7 years and graduated from 2 conservatories, one in New York, one in LA, and that's really what began that journey. And then I had a little derail. I went down to Orlando, Florida, and I was a dancer for Disney World, and I competed for the Miss America pageant system, and then I made it out to the San Francisco area, and I started working in independent films out there, and by God's precious grace, I started to win some awards for my work as an actor, and that started to give me confidence that, wow, I must have learned a little bit of something. And now fast forward, almost 20 years later, pursuing this journey, there's now 14 films that are in the queue that I filmed since 2010. And it's incredible that they all share a commonality. They're all redemptive worldview movies. They have messages of inspiration. Some of them are evangelical Christian movies. Some of them are movies that all audiences can enjoy, but really can understand a good redemptive worldview value to it. And God has really just answered that desire and cry in my heart. Like, it's funny, I look at Doonby. Doonby is a movie that is available now on demand. It came to theaters in November, and it's going to release on DVD, I believe, next week, all across Europe and internationally. And that movie impacts people's lives. And then my other prayer was to do movies that inspire, and God's Country inspires people's lives. And so I'm so humble, and I'm humbled and just want to be able to share and give back everything God has taught me to be able to help other people live the dreams that God has put on their hearts.
You're so vocal and honest about your faith and how it inspires you, and it's such a large part of your career and the roles that you seek. And I go back to a press conference we recently attended on the new Left Behind movie, and they talked about, it is hard in Hollywood, and kind of a stigma a little bit with being a Christian, so a little stigma with being a Christian film or a religious film and those kinds of things. And I think some of those glass ceilings are being broken. I think yearly, every year, we're seeing different things that are happening that hadn't happened before. What are your experiences with that? Do you still see, or speak to how you see it as God working on that and being, like I said, breaking some of those glass ceilings?
It is so cool to see God, honest to goodness. Now, I'm in a niche market. I'm in the faith and family film market as an actor. And so what I have seen is a movement of God breathing a fire across the nation, raising up filmmakers, putting a call in their heart, saying, I want you to make movies that honor me. And several of these filmmakers are told to make come to Jesus moments in the films, like your Kendrick brothers with Courageous. And then a lot of the filmmakers, God has put a call in their heart, is to make movies that all audiences can enjoy, that have a redemptive worldview. And the cool thing that I've seen is that these filmmakers do not know each other. They're all across the country, and they have the exact same call from God. And you have to scratch your head, you pull that telescope back, and you know God is doing something. Then you have Actors, Models, Talent for Christ, which was a 30-year-old company turned into a ministry, raising up artists to be role models in arts and entertainment and media. And then you have Movie Guide, which movieguide.org, they just had their awards gala this past Friday in Hollywood.
Faith and Vision Awards. Yep. We covered that as well. Yeah.
Oh, very, very, very cool. So I was there, and Ted Baer is the founder of Movie Guide. He's been a mentor in my life. And Brandon, it is so exciting to see the statistics. So 5 to 10 years ago, the volume of faith and family or anything that had good values in movies was a small percentage. This year has been a 66% increase. That's a statistical number of films that have been made that have either storylines that have family in it or storylines that have an element of spirituality in it, that has love, hope, unconditional love, hope, grace, forgiveness, these values that are woven into these films. And there is truly a movement that's happening. And Hollywood recognizes the box office. So with Left Behind, with Noah, with Exodus, these are some of the movies that are made by your mainstream companies. They're making these movies because they know the Christians want to go to the film because of the box office value. And I do know that Hollywood has shifted, and they recognize that there is an element of acceptance in the faith-based market. And I think Alone Yet Not Alone is the coolest example of that, because watching Alone Yet Not Alone being nominated for an Oscar and then the Oscar being pulled away, we saw Hollywood, we saw journalism, we saw the public's perspective in Hollywood stand up and raise up saying, hey, is this Christian bigotry or is this the right thing to do? I mean, people literally stood up and said, listen, it doesn't matter if it's a Christian film. Is it right that this was revoked or not? And you saw people fighting for the Christian film. Atheists saying, listen, this should still be something to be considered an Oscar. You know, it doesn't matter what type of storyline is the background of it. And so I don't know if I vocalized that correctly, but I'll try to say it again. It's been so neat to see the Hollywood community at large acknowledge and have an element of respect for Alone Yet Not Alone being a faith-based movie. And that level of respect and acknowledgement is something that I have never seen really on a personal level versus box office. Box office, obviously, that's why Noah, Exodus, Left Behind have been created, is, because there's a need. And Hollywood's filling that need. And those movies are going to be awesome and amazing and excellent, and people are going to go and they're going to love them if the stories are told well, which most likely they will be. But there is a shift in our climate, and there is an acceptance in our climate, and God is doing an amazing, cool thing that is just knock your socks off cool. But I think us as Christians, the most important thing is this: We must not act in judgment. We must only act in love, in grace, and forgiveness. That is the only way that our character must be under all circumstances because of, all the different political perspectives of things.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very big challenge for the Christian community, in my opinion, as we see these big mainstream Hollywood films coming out as early as Noah and Left Behind right behind it. And, it's funny because I have a very vocal atheist friend, and he really wants to see Noah be truthful to Scripture, which I found shocking, but exciting at the same time. And it's like, well, if it's not going to be faithful and it's not going to be what you believe, then why would it be done? And I thought that was a very awesome sort of perspective on things that Hollywood hasn't embraced. And I think the Christian response to these films and any deviation from Scripture and all those things, because we don't have a track record as a community of always responding well, Passion of the Christ being one of the greatest examples where it was very divisive, even in the religious circles. And it will be great to see, as you said, let's embrace the fact that it got made, and let's have conversation and dialogue based on what's right and what's wrong, and not from a beating anybody over the head. No one needs to, drag their Aronofsky out by his hair. We just need to say, well, we like this part, we didn't like that part, but overall, we want to see more films like this, that kind of thing. And your community that you're working so hard in now, and you bring up a great point, because the Kendrick brothers and Mackenzie, Derek Gates, all these different filmmakers, they're not like hanging out at a Hollywood party together. These guys are in different parts of the country. And sometimes we kind of lose sight of that. With DVDs show up in a Lifeway or a Family Christian store, we don't keep in mind that these are so faith-driven films. People literally are acting on faith to get the financing and the actors and make these things happen. And your testimony to that has really been very, very awesome. I'm glad we were able to talk about so many different projects and stuff. And one last thing, just to know, because I know your part is very small. You got your part in Frost Nixon. What does Ron say to you? What's advice? What does he do to help you? I know it's a small role, but what does Ron say to you?
Oh my goodness, Ron Howard was probably one of the most amazing directors because of his legacy in Hollywood and his humble, quiet, sweet heart. So I played Tricia Nixon, and I was in 6 scenes in the movie and reenacting the resignation of President Nixon in Frost Nixon. And in the final film, they all got cut down to little glimpses. So if you blink, you might miss me. But when we were shooting, Ron was a very collaborative individual. He would come in and he would discuss amongst everybody the vision of what was going to be filmed that day. And he really allowed us the freedom to explore. I'll never forget the first day of shooting. We were dealing with a near-death experience of President Nixon. So we were in this small hospital room. And the emotions of that scene where, my daddy almost died. And the same moment is when he's being pardoned by Harold Ford. So you have 2 big emotional things. And so the emotion was, full for the entire family. And that scene was shot as an MOS, which means without sound. So I could hear Ron guide the camera, which was our DP with Sal Tortino. And he would just hold the camera and he would be like, okay, push into President Nixon. Okay, now go up to Patty, which was Pat Nixon. And then as the emotion filled in my soul for my daddy, and I reached for his hand to, there's a little moment that I have with these ice chips where he's nodding off, and I grab his hand, and as I grab his hand, the emotion comes over me. I was like, Daddy, you're going to make it. And the emotion just fueled in my eyes, and then Ron's like, okay, push down to Tricia. Okay, hold there. Okay, push in. And you could hear him talking the camera through, moving the camera to paint cinematically based on the emotional moments that were happening. And then I can feel myself wanting to look up to my mom for condolence and for, comfort. And I look up, and as I look up, then I heard Ron, okay, push up to Patty. And so it was so neat to be able to experience a moment of how mainstream Hollywood operates with some of our best directors like Ron Howard with such grace and gentleness and sensitivity. And that's how he operated with all the scenes that we filmed. He really wanted to make sure it was very accurate. We looked at archival footage before we even filmed the walking onto the helicopter, presidential helicopter, and he had out in these small little videos looking at archival footage, and he made sure all of us was, focusing on all that. And those were the specifics of details that Ron wanted to master. And so I just walked away with how humble, how collaborative, how giving, how warm and supportive he was. And then later on when we were at a screening, there's a big, Hollywood screening, he came in the side door. Nobody would even know he was there. And he had this little hat on, and he just kind of blended in, and he didn't want to stand out. He wasn't a person to say, hey, look at me. He was a person that was just so like you and me, just average day Joes, just trying to be a good friend to everybody. I just have such adoration for him. And his daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, who is just a reflection of her dad's beauty and just character. She's also just a wonderful woman.
Well, I'm so glad we touched on it, because that is great embodiment of what we've always heard about Ron Howard, and the same approach with Apollo 13 and many of these other big films that he's done, and he sort of has that humility and calmness that he brings to the Hollywood set. Well, we've been talking with Jenn Gotzon about, so many projects. It's been such a blessing, and I hope that we can talk again very soon as some of these films start to hit, and I get a chance to see even more of them. And, God bless you. Take care in your travels, and, we're going to keep praying for these films, for God to keep delivering more of them.
Amen. Brandon, thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And God bless you and all of your listeners, that God has a big hope and a plan and a purpose for each and every one of you. And we just got to stay connected to the Lord, and He'll lead us through.
Thank you again, Jen. You take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.